Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to Building the Bridge. I have the privilege of being today joined by Andrew Hughes, who's an insurance broker with the Alliance Insurance Group based in the United States. And Andrew's in St. Petersburg, Florida, works with a lot of international companies that are wanting to do US business or working now in the US. So thank you for joining us, Andrew.
It's my pleasure.
You've been kind enough to do a few other videos where you give us some great information. What I want to hear is to incentivize our audience to make sure that they take insurance seriously and they incorporate it into their planning strategies for the U.S. for U.S. operations. Is what are some circumstances you've seen in your 13 plus years doing this where insurance has sort of made or broke a company, made it successful or made it so they couldn't be successful?
Sure. So I guess the place that I'll start is with a workers' compensation claim that happened. And this one, fortunately, was covered by insurance, but it was an employee was on their way from one site to another.
Okay.
And they were sideswept off of a bridge. And the employee survived.
Oh my God.
But they were a paraplegic. So workers' compensation is designed, if that happens, to take care of that employee for the rest of their life. So it takes care of their medical costs. It takes care of the additional care that's going to be needed, having people come in. And as of the last time I looked at that claim, it was $3.5 million so far that's been paid by that. And the important thing to remember about workers' compensation is if that coverage is not in place, the employer has the responsibility to provide the exact same services that the insurance would have provided.
Oh my goodness. So you're talking about $3.5 million that the employer would have been on the hook for?
Correct.
That's
well,
over time.
To date, and that was only a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, and again, that is going to continue for the rest of their life. And so that
you did say that this person was in transit from one site to the other. They weren't in the actual office space, correct?
Correct. Because as long as they're on company business, that's a part of their job.
Wow.
Another thing that people forget to take into account is if they have traveling salespeople. While those people are traveling on company business, they are under the workers' compensation protection. So if there's not a policy on them, then the company is liable for whatever would happen. Those people are often driving, and outside of product liability, aka if you get sued for a faulty product that injures somebody.
Right.
Auto accidents are where some of the highest liabilities can be driven, because depending on the state you're in, again, every state's different in terms of their laws and responsibilities. But if you cause a 15-car pileup, you could be responsible for that entire 15-car, all the damages, everything else.
And then so if you covered your employee and they were responsible somehow, that could be covered?
As long as they were on company business.
And you said that it changes state by state. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? So, in Europe, for example, people think the whole country is the same, the laws are the same. But
yeah, they think of the United States as a very homogenous place. And we aren't. We actually have 50 separate states. Each state has their own laws, they have their own taxes, they have their own insurance regulations. Okay. So the rules in one state don't necessarily apply to another state because each one is crafting their own insurance rules and regulations. So pricing between insurance can vary wildly from state to state.
So really people need to work with a broker if they're thinking about doing US business. It's not just in one space and their employees are in one space, which is not common anymore. People are working from home, companies are expanding, their services and products are going all over the country. They really need to work with a broker who knows how to come up with a comprehensive plan, right?
Correct. And they have to have a broker that's licensed in all the states they want to do business in, because we have to carry a license in every state that we want to write insurance in.
Gotcha. How about another example? That was a really great example. Another another horror story or positive story that has to do with insurance and why these companies really need to have insurance.
Sure. I'm actually going to tie this one also into having good risk management practices and having a good risk management broker. So I had a client who was a very large group of apartment complexes. And unfortunately, one of the residents drowned in the pool. And because they had maintained all their documentation, they had cameras up, they had the rules posted, they were in compliance with all the regulations.
Right.
When the suit came, it was not going to go very far. So the insurance was there to take care of it, which again, something like that, especially if it goes to a jury, can be very sympathetic. Juries don't always side with the law. Sometimes they side with sympathy, and they view insurance carriers and large corporations as a place to get justice for the injured person.
Right.
Even if it's not in compliance with the law.
Okay.
And so making sure you have those good risk management, the good record keeping, good policies and procedures in place can really protect you so that you don't have to use up $1, $3, $5, $10 million worth of insurance coverage.
Okay, so it's a way to sort of do prevention that also minimizes a little bit more what your costs will be.
Correct. Well, and sometimes without those protections, you can't get access to some of the best carriers and pricing. Okay. So carriers will take a look at what your policies and procedures are, and not having high quality ones in place can sometimes disqualify you from getting access.
Wow, I hear about all this and it makes me wonder, and this is important for foreign entrepreneurs and business to think about, if it's really worth doing the cost of business or not. But obviously minimizing risk is hugely important. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because usually you think of insurance brokers and as just selling you a policy, but not thinking about how to prevent risk as well. You know?
Yeah, well, and it's critical to build that comprehensive program, because once you know what your expenses are going to be, your expenses that are generated by creating the right policies, by doing the proper maintenance, then by purchasing the insurance itself, you can model those costs into your products and services, and you can see if it still remains viable. You can do that before you even buy the first plane ticket over here, just by contacting some of the right people. You can say, okay, we think that our product is viable at this dollar. Once we factor in the cost of our taxes, maintenance, everything else, can we still sell the product at this dollar? And that's a real critical thing to do when you're in your first stages of considering a new venture.
Yeah, but I always tell my potential clients and my clients overseas that are launching US operations is do not improvise, and also speak to experts in the US, because you might not be thinking about things that it may be in whatever country you're in aren't really, you know, cost generating things that you absolutely need, but in the US they may be.
And if you don't have access to about 1.5 times your budgeted capital, you might want to reconsider waiting till you've got more capital to try and make that move. Just because the single greatest cause of failure I see is undercapitalization.
Because you don't have the money to pay for these contingencies that you could have minimized or avoided if you had actually taken them into consideration, right? So
yep,
all
or construction on your facility takes an extra 3 months, or you know, the contracts that you were guaranteed when you got here got pushed back 6 months. So if you don't have the funds to be able to get through those hurdles, then I've seen a lot of companies get themselves behind the 8 ball, and it's a small percentage of the ones that can get themselves out.
Yeah, I've seen the same. Do you have any other tidbits for our audience today when it comes to stories? It's all about
the horror stories.
planning.
Oh, here's a good one just for anybody who's going to be considering going into a coastal location and have a building.
Okay.
So if you don't have both wind and flood insurance, your hurricane protection is not going to be comprehensive. So
Okay.
because even if the wind's pushing the water in, they're still going to consider that as a flood. And flood's a separate policy that's never included in any of your other property policies, with very rare exceptions.
This is the famous Mississippi Delta flooding caused by hurricane kind of situations, right? That you hear so many businesses get wiped out because they didn't add that extra coverage.
Yep. So I'll get a little nerdy here. In insurance, we follow the doctrine of proximate cause, which is what was the originating cause for that thing that happened. So if a spike of fence goes through somebody's window, the proximate cause of that was actually the wind that blew the spike that sent the thing and broke the window. Okay. So we're not looking at the broken window, we're looking at what caused it. And so because with a hurricane, you have the storm surge as well as the blown wind. I forget what year it was, but the insurance companies and flood companies were fighting back and forth over who was paying for it, the insurance or the property carrier or the flood carrier. Right. And so the only way to really make sure that you're fully protected is to have both.
Got it.
And make sure that if you are in that coastal area, that you are looking very seriously at getting a flood policy as well.
That's a wonderful tidbit. Thank you. So thank you for all your knowledge today. Thanks for the stories. I hope this inspires people to do things the right way. And if those people who want to do things the right way want to talk to you, how do they get in touch with you?
The best way to reach me is by email. My email is andrew.h@allinsgrp.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Andrew.
It's my pleasure.